Okay, I see that Mark has joined in, so we're going to go ahead and get started. Hello, everyone. Again, my name is Billy, and I'm with Accelerant Research. Thanks so much for staying on. If you're joining this is the first seminar that you're joining, thank you. If you're returning, thank you very much as well. That was a wonderful talk that we just listened to about the retail environment. And what we are going to be doing next, hold on one second. We are moving on to our next conference. And as you're already very familiar with, because we all lived in the world of Zoom for a very long time, it seems like, we are at the mercy of technology. So we pardon us if we have any issues along the way. Throughout, Mark will be sharing his experiences with us. And so if you have questions or things that you would like to ask him, go ahead and put it in the Q&A box and we will get to those. Mark, do you like to answer things along the way or do you prefer to keep things at the end?
I sure do. I like to be as interactive as possible. If I could see everyone, that would even be better. But yes, by all means, if you have questions coming up, because I'm not sure if I'll be able to see comments from here, but
okay.
I can look at the chat, but I'm not sure if I can monitor a Q&A
okay.
if you have that.
And I will field those for you, but I'll just make sure that I am giving those to you in real time, okay?
Awesome. Feel free to break in anytime because there's a lot of material to cover.
Wonderful. So we're going to get started right away. Like I said, we have Mark. Is it Michelson or Michelson?
It's Michelson. My favorite mangling is Mike Markelson. There you go.
Okay. And Mark is the CEO and producer of CX Forums, and they're a place where people connect, learn, and get inspired. And what he's going to be talking to us today is about how customer experience research, how it's literally changing the game for all of us. And that's a really exciting topic. And I know I'm looking forward to it. So I'm going to just go ahead and throw it your direction, Mark, and you can get started.
Awesome. Well, I'll take over the screen there if you can.
Okay.
So my little thing.
It's all yours.
All right. Let's see what I've got in store for everyone. Okay. I guess everyone can see my screen now and make it big for everyone. There we go. Everyone see that okay?
Looks perfect.
Okay, good. So we're going to be talking about customer insights and metrics, which really are changing the game for marketing research. To get started on this, I want to share a little bit of background and think about it. Each of us are different people at different times and circumstances. So how do you actually understand what experience is unless you understand what the person's doing and sort of where they're coming from? For instance, you may know me as this guy. I'm involved in conferences. I'm involved in doing research. I've been doing it a long time. So the professional me. At other times, I'm parents, and a lot of us are. And we're nothing like we are in the professional mode when we're doing the parent role. And then a lot of us have hobbies and things. And so mine just happens to be making music. And so you'd never put two and two together with this stuff. So how do you research these people? Well, CX research also uses different approaches based on very specific needs and objectives. And the experience really does depend on who you are and what you expect. I remember hearing once when I went to college in Georgia, I took a class about strategy and stuff. And the guy made a really good comment. He says, experience is equal to your expectations minus, your experience minus the expectations. So if your expectation is really great, then the experience is probably not going to be as good. Like, ever hear about a great movie or a great restaurant from a friend? Well, guess what they were saying? They told you about it, you go there and it's awful. But anyhow, my CX journey began earlier in college. Actually, I was a busker in Europe, had to make money, and so creating experiences for that time was guitar, standing in front of street corners. At college, I played a lot, and that was actually creating experiences too. When you think about it, creating experience events. And I also started a weekly magazine. That magazine had surveys in it. When I graduated, I sold the magazine, made enough money to start up my own company, which was an advertising agency. Then I sold that. I didn't care for advertising as much as the strategy and research. I liked understanding what people do and what they feel. And that really became my mission. Actually, early in life, I came up with a mission to help people understand each other. After getting into the research fully, we had like 40 people or so working for me at the time. And We were doing a lot of mystery shopping, about 6,000 shops a month, and started an association in that industry. That was fantastic, very interesting, a lot of conferences and stuff. And then I got involved in doing research at trade shows and conferences, the big one. Remember the days of the big old Compex and all these things where you have 50,000 people. We were there doing the intercept interviews and focus groups. Anyhow, 9/11 hit, killed me. I had to sell off all that stuff, which was okay. Took a break, had my daughter. Then I started Threads Qualitative Research specifically to do online, because I was kind of getting tired of traveling so much. But to do online research, it was still coming around, starting to become more viable. Then I started the Mobile Research Association a couple years after the smartphone was invented, and then started organizing conferences, and that's where we are today. With CX Forum, CX Talks started originally as a CXPA event, which is the Association of Customer Experience Professionals. And then I created, during this whole time, I've sort of reinvented that as CX Forum. Now, into what we're talking about. The CX world is huge. It's much bigger than just UX. CX takes into account everything that's from the product development through to understanding what customer needs are, to packaging, distribution, getting it into the store, creating a store, creating merchandising systems, creating packaging, getting it out. It basically is farm to table, okay? Whereas UX is really more focused on the interaction that we have with devices and particularly electronic, but it could even be other things. Now, CX really does cover the entire brand experience. It's the heart of everything. So it's the service design, the UI design, the product design. I would even, as I mentioned, facility development and all that's part of customer experience. Did a lot of work around designing stores for many years and products and packaging. We never called it experience research at the time. It was product design research. It was UX study. It was service design, et cetera. But all this stuff changed, I guess, about 15, 20 years ago when a book came out, The Experience Economy. I think personally, I think the X generation has something to do with all this phenomenon of X's. We have customer experience, the CX, brand experience, user experience, employee experience. I had a conversation the other day with someone, and it was actually Accenture, and they have a new thing they're doing, business experience. And so we had this conversation around, do we really need more X's? I don't know. It's becoming a little bit ridiculous. But let's focus in on what research is doing in this industry. I think you should be very excited about the opportunity for market research in customer experience world. And I'll just give you one example. If you've ever heard of Qualtrics, they're a survey platform, started about 15, 17 years ago, something like that. SAP bought them for $8 billion, that's with B, cash. And so the owners, Ryan Smith and his family, they had 97% share. Then they sold it, then they took it public, made even more money. So if that's just one participant in the CX business. So think about it, of the opportunities. The idea of customer needs and understanding what that is what's most important to clients when you're thinking about doing research. And it goes way beyond usability. You've got to understand beyond the numbers even. And a lot of people, unfortunately, are sort of focused on making CX only a survey. I've heard that so many times. And that's because a lot of people in CX that have responsibility for creating and running these programs really don't understand what real research is. They know it as the NPS score. They know it as the dashboard. But they don't really get down into other things like testing reactions to marketing content, understanding consumer behavior and lifestyles, complex in the wild experiences. They don't get there a lot of times. And it's funny because they don't understand things like recruiting, study design, basic stuff. So the data sources in customer experience are just what we're used to in marketing research, but it becomes a little bit stickier on the back end of analytics and speed to delivery. So as you might expect, there's a lot of qualitative research in the front end, and I'm going to cover that in depth in a moment. All types of methods for communicating with people, understanding what their needs are on a qualitative level. The quantitative metrics, as I said, they're kind of driving the big dollars, if you will, in CX. And that's the NPS scores, the CSAT scores, the CES scores, customer effort score, and the resolution score, call centers and service problems. And then there's this whole idea of journey analytics, where you're actually monitoring every touch point and making sure that you're on with every touch point. You've got some sort of feedback coming in. Voice of employee, huge part of customer experience. It's not just the customer, it's how we're doing and delivering it, and what is their point of view and perception, and can they provide some input to improvements, of course. Customer analytics, it goes beyond sentiment data. And this is where it gets really sticky, because in the past, in my whole career, research was always siloed off from marketing. You could not market to someone based on what they said in a survey response. That was just standard practice, best practice. And every time we did telephone surveys in the past, we'd say, "Hi, I'm with so-and-so. I'm not selling anything. We're not going to use your information against you," something like that. Well, now, guess what? You can basically utter something in your living room, and voice analytics is going to pick it up and deliver that advertisement to you on Facebook the next minute. I mean, we're living in a very tight digital world, and that is being down to the individual level. And there's a lot of controversy around that, as well as laws coming into play in Europe, California, a couple other states. You really can't have any private information, PII is what they call it. But within the world of experience management, it's tied directly to individuals all the way down the line. CRM data, transactional data, voice of customer data, operational data, combined with all that, is giving these companies an edge to understand what that customer experience is and be able to act on it. Whatever it is, personalization, mass personalization, or if they have to tell someone, "Hey, your sign fell off in the front door," they can do that very rapidly. It's all about digital these days, especially, but it has to go back to the channel. I still firm believer in high tech, high touch. We're going to be back together. It's going to be both hybrid and that. I heard something the other day that still e-commerce is not anywhere near what it is in brick and mortar. And it's like, I don't know, 20, 25%, don't quote me, but it's not anywhere near. So there's still a need for people to gather, a need for people to go into places, touch and feel stuff, get interaction, get feedback, talk with other humans beyond the screen. So there's other things too that come into play. Other channels might be online reputation, any kind of ratings and reviews. Gosh, there's a whole bunch of a marketplace for those ratings and reviews. Mining that data is huge. A company called Bizarre Voice they almost have a lock on the market, you might say. But all those ratings and reviews you get out there, they're all analyzed constantly for product ideas, for sentiment, for other things like distribution issues, service issues. And then there's mystery shopping audits. For those of you not familiar with mystery shopping, basically it is an audit. It's not really the opinion of the person or the shopper, because they're trained to go look for certain things. They may never ever want to go there as a customer. So getting their feedback on, would you come back, or would you recommend it to someone? It's not really pertinent as were you greeted within this time frame? Did they show you the product you asked for, et cetera? Very yes and no binary structure to that one. Now, let's break down this whole world of CX research into before and after purchase. So you might frame that as, how are we doing and how can we improve? It's sort of a big full circle, if you will. So before, you have design research, and that could be anything from products, services, facilities, packaging, merchandising, marketing, communications, huge area. Other things might be that you want to understand your own team and what their feelings are about stuff before you go design something. And then after is what the customer experiences when they're in the shopping mode all the way through to consumption. And it's not always the same person. For instance, I don't think mom's wearing the diaper she's buying, but we really can't talk to the baby about it. So there's shoppers and then there's consumers, if you will. So that's roughly how things break out between before and after. And design research is particularly fascinating for me. I love this area because we often are trying to, focus in on what everybody is doing and what they see and how they're acting. And so we may ask them about stuff, and we may look at maps, and the map is not the actual territory. It's just a rendering of it. It's a visual representation. But when you start getting with the design team and they bring this voice of customer and bring the customer feedback to their design process, it gives them better guidance on what people are really doing versus what they think should be done, as illustrated on the paths to the left. So the elements of CX design research become a little bit, there's a lot of different areas. There's human elements, there's the informational elements, there's internal things going on, what you want as far as desired outcomes. Generally, the design research is going to be more qualitative in nature. It's going to have a lot of observational research. You could have sat there and watched that trail and see which way people are walking before you laid the asphalt. You focus on identifying those needs for products and services, whatever that might be. So a lot of the work we do is using a lot of the methods we're always used to. Ethnography, which I enjoyed the presentation earlier today. It was fantastic. Mobile ethnography in particular, you can get into people's homes or lives, wherever they want to share. It has to be iterative and agile. So in other words, build on what you know as you go through design research. Don't stick to, this is the way we designed it, we're going to stick on these questions every time. You may have answered the question already. Let's move on. Let's change the question to stay up with the customer, and especially over a long period of time. And this is really, a design study a lot of times has an outcome and then it's over, right? You create the thing. But you might want to revisit that thing at some point. Continuous improvement's a big part of CX. And it's across organizations and channels. When you get involved in doing CX research, particularly for something like journey mapping, you need to include all stakeholders. And what you'll learn in CX world is there's a whole bunch of silos. There's people in charge of human resources, there's people in charge of product design, people in charge of IT things, there's people, all around store operations. Everyone needs to be included at some point, and you have to get their buy-in. So in journey mapping is one way to do this. And journey maps are particularly used a lot in customer experience. And so journey maps basically detail the experience from what we call the ZMOD or zero moment of truth all the way through to consumption. And some even argue that it goes full circle again. So it is informed by qualitative and quantitative data, and the maps are interesting in the world now. There are some that are data-driven. In other words, they're in the cloud, and you can input your data and have your data automatically update maps to understand where troubles are. The down cycles are generally lower emotions or bad or worse experiences versus the higher one. And there are a lot of different platforms out there. I could do a whole workshop just on journey mapping alone, but it is one of the primary tools for CX professionals. And the idea of the map has to be informed by research from both the customer and internal stakeholders, as well as employees on the front line. So this, and including all IT, et cetera. So you have to understand, get their buy-in, get their input, and then you sort of map that out, if you will. And it's usually, if you think of a hotel, you might start with searching for hotels. What is that like on your platform, your brand versus all the other ones? I'm just making up Expedia, Travel Monkey, or whatever it is. So then you have getting to the hotel, what do they do when you arrive? Is it parking, all that stuff? And then you have check in, then you have your room, or maybe someone carries your bags for your room. Your room itself's got a lot of functions and features like the TV, et cetera. And then you have various places within the hotel. Could be amenities or room service. All these different things are different channels, if you will, categories that you want, and they're touch points. You want to measure and understand what is needed at each touch point so you can design for it. So journey mapping's fun. Come chat with me anytime about that. Now, on to the quant side. This is really what happens after the research, after the experience. And most of this stuff is looking in the rearview mirror, okay? You try to get these kinds of data before before it becomes a problem. So you want to make sure you understand what's going on. But right now, NPS in the Net Promoter Score is known as the leading CX measurement for good or bad. So basically, it's anyone who gives it a 9 or a 10 is a promoter. The question is, how likely are you to recommend this company to a friend or family or whatever? It doesn't work very well in B2B, number one. And these are my things on it. And unless you ask why they gave that rating, it really doesn't give you much insight to work with. They might tell you, yeah, it's not that good, but you don't know why. So always follow up these kinds of scales with a why question. And if you're doing them at scale, you have to be prepared to deal with fast analytics and AI tools to understand and bring that insight to people who can make a difference at the companies. Another one is everyone's familiar with customer satisfaction scores. These generally go from 1 to 10. The NPS score goes 0 to 10. So they only count the top 2 in NPS, but on customer sat, it's a little bit different. You can go down to specifically your satisfaction with various blocks of the experience, if you will, the selection, service, product, location, et cetera. So that's what you're into with satisfaction measurement versus recommending someone. CES, customer effort score, is another one. And this is really good for understanding how easy it was to shop. And it could be anything, how easy was it to get the help you wanted today? You might see this one coming out a little bit more. I think it's got a little bit more oomph to it because you take the easy and you sort of minus the difficult and you get that net easy score. It's fairly new on the block, but I think it's going to come out more because, experience is all about making it easier for people to just get what they need. And really it changes your mindset from a selling kind of mindset to a help them buy it mindset. And if you think about that, I'm just helping people buy versus, do they like me? Are they going to come back? All that stuff. I'm not likely to go back to a place I visited, out of town. I'm not likely to recommend my grocery store, frankly. So the whole NPS thing, I think, has fallacies. I like this score. It has a lot of potential, and we'll see what happens in the future on that. Now, all these different data points are coming into platforms. So these platforms basically take data streams from different sources. It could be transactional data, which you get on your receipt, or you might have if you do a web purchase, you might get a little, pop-up for a survey. And these are very short transactional data. How'd we do? Any problems we need to know about? It's just that kind of thing. But it tracks also, along with the sentiment data, as I mentioned earlier, it's going to track who you are, your demographics, your buying history, your contact history, basically everything you might see in Salesforce for every person out there. Plus whatever their behaviors are online, all that's being tracked and sold, believe it or not. If you don't, check out the Social Dilemma to see how they're selling all of us on social media. It's free. Customer data platforms are a little bit different because they integrate with marketing tech stacks. So marketing technology stacks or MarTech stacks could be your email programs or type of marketing you're doing. So the idea of converting people and funnels and all this stuff, that's kind of what a customer data platform does. And I'm not a big fan of funnel sales personally. I guess I'm just old school and I believe in, real relationships and not leading people down and upselling them constantly. I believe getting customers and serving them, as I'd want to be served long term is better. So as in the past, they've had this sort of the funnel, right? It's been an afterthought, and it's moving more towards this sort of flywheel, if you will. Customers at the center of every decision, and it becomes sort of a cultural thing, and that's where customer experience management comes into play versus just the CRM or CDPs. So customer experience management takes into account the sentiment along the way, and it's the sum of all data related to customer experience. So it could be mystery shop scores, it could be survey scores, it could even be qualitative. You take all of that together and you get a better picture of who is my customer now? I remember the shots of the rock and roll and the researcher up front. But all that it comes down to you have to get information to the end users in customer experience research. And it has to be done quickly. Just to give you an example, when we were doing those 5,000 and 6,000 mystery shops back in the day, before internet, there could be a term for that, I think BI or something. But anyhow, before internet, we were doing about 5,000, 6,000 shops. They were all by mail or fax. And finding shoppers, we ran ads in newspapers. And all of this stuff, it was typical for a 30-day turnaround on shops, and that's pushing it with 5,000 shops. These shops were not easy either. A lot of them were apartment communities, so you gave away the identity, or they were like optical stores. We did 1,000 optical stores. So you had to give away your identity, go set up an appointment, get your glasses, bring all this stuff. Then we want to send the glasses to us. But it took a long time to get feedback to the stores, and then all of these surveys coming in. We had bucket loads of mail coming in every day with these mystery shopper reports. As they came in, we had to open them up, sort them out into the client files, give them to the project manager, do quality control on each one, make sure they're accurate and not contradicting themselves within a report. Then you had to do data entry, then you had to do reporting, and everything was customized. So you can imagine the lag time between there's a fire at the store, the mystery shopper says, and getting that to that store manager to do something about it. Well, all that's changed now with the speed of the internet, and it seems to be accelerating every day. And so what they've had to do for their own, and they being the customer experience managers, there's managers, directors, officers, et cetera, in customer experience world. The customer experience manager need to understand what is happening in the field, what is happening with their operations. Is it causing customers to move away from them or move toward them? Is it causing them to over time? Is it increasing their feeling of good feelings towards the company, or do they have an issue? If they have issues, were they resolved in a timely manner? All of these kinds of data that come back to the manager have to be analyzed quickly. And that's a lot of it's automatic. And then it has to be distributed down to the right people who can use that information to make timely decisions and actions to make those things happen. Over time, a dashboard sort of becomes their go-to reality, if you will. So you see a lot of, that's why people now sort of think customer experience is just that. It's about surveys. It's about NPS scores. And I hear sad tales from these folks all the time. They're saying, I go and talk to my leadership team, and all they want to know is how I did on my NPS score. And a lot of times that's because bonuses are tied to those things, and or their own performance metrics for their own reviews. That's a good thing, but it can be a bad thing. And I'll tell you where it's a bad thing. An example. You ever go to a car dealership for service or buy a car? They hand you the survey and say, give me a 10. Then they send you 5 emails, give me a 10. Then they say, you get a call, hey, did you give me a 10? How real is that after a point, There was another, and it's not just car dealers. I had an apartment community complex. We were doing like 70 of their locations or something, but one of the communities, handwritten surveys distributed by the staff to doors. Handwritten surveys, we gather them all, they come mailing in. So we got 100 something questionnaires filled out with the exact same handwriting and different colors of ink. So the struggle to try to do well and do scores, and it just allows a lot of wiggle room in the past. So you want to make sure those data coming in are accurate. And that's part of the job of the analysts, to make sure that the outliers, that they can do something with that, which is what we do in survey data all the time. So speed of the KPI data and putting that in one view is what these managers need. They've got a lot on their plate. So give them what they need. And these things are customized often. You can customize it however you want. But that's kind of where your report now lives, is in a dashboard. The other big reports we used to do in the past, they've disappeared totally. Even my qualitative reports have really changed a lot. More of them are video reports. More of them are pictorials. There's a lot more graphics that are used now. And I think a lot of that has to do with our own short attention span. It's going to continue to be a challenge to get things done, say what you mean, and have action on it very quickly. It's just, I think it's part of the internet, and I think part of it's societal. And that's happening even more now because of COVID, because everyone's online. So that's kind of early here. So I want to see if we have any questions. I can certainly go on forever about this topic because it's near and dear to my heart. But do we have any questions so far, Billy?
We don't, but I have a couple that might prime the pump.
Sure.
One of them is what you just had talked about, and the nature of how reporting is changing. People with shorter attention spans, but also just, not wanting to just see reams of data, but wanting to hear the story. And that you've turned to using digital and video as a means. Can you talk to us a little bit about an example of one of those reports and how it changed, how it might have looked in the past, and how it's evolved
Sure.
to fit a more modern time?
Yeah. I can use some examples. I can't name the clients, of course.
Yeah, that's great.
But there's a very large company that was exploring virtual reality headsets, and these were a couple of years back when they first became public, commercially available. So these are the kinds that are hooked up to your to a big computer. You're tethered by cable, right?
Mm-hmm.
Not the kind you put your phone in box. So these are pretty immersive experiences. This client wanted to enter the field of VR, and they were looking at all the components around what VR is about and how people act with it. So we set up these studies. There were a bunch of IDIs, probably around 40 or so, and they were with people who had just purchased a device. It could have been Oracle, or it could have been HTC Vive. I think that was only 2 at the time. And so we were looking really closely at what they needed and how their living rooms are set up, or their viewing gaming rooms, or whatever their setup was. We wanted to know everything about their physical environment in their home, as well as what their feelings were about being in the actual experience and what they were going through in that experience. Both, how do they prepare for it? What is their emotion level going into it and after? So a lot of that was visually represented back to the client through both, photographs and videos of clips of people doing things in their home, as well as talking. Now, we actually set it up, and this is kind of a fun study design, but we set it up with people where we could see their screen. So they just, we could see everything on their screen. So whatever they're seeing in their virtual is just like 2 screens you could see. And then we could also see them through a laptop. So just like this kind of conversation. And then they also had their phone that we could see in their room. So we could see them sitting at their desk from the phone, as well as what's on their screen, as well as what they're talking to us about. And the interview lasted, it was about almost 2 hours long, but we really wanted to see the whole setup and what was it like getting it and opening it up. And from all that, there's a lot of video in there. Now, I happen to do everything in the cloud on like a Google Slides kind of thing. So it was easy to have those links to video clips, especially if they were protected. If I use a service for setting up the interviews, and they have a platform, right? And so all the library of all that stuff's within a protected platform. Well, if they're sharing this report throughout the company, I need to make sure they can all see the videos. So those video clips, we would take them, clip them out, put them in there, and put links to different places. But I had to actually create a sub place for that they could access, so anyone could access at any time without having to have permissions. The other thing was, we get to a page and just bring it to life on each page. It's harder now. I mean, we're all used to the Brady Bunch setup of Zoom, but how do you get someone's voice to the decision makers? To me, I record it. I just bring it and I say, okay, you've seen all these data. That hits your right brain pretty good. Now let's look at, or I hit your left brain pretty good. Yeah, left brain, I guess, I don't know. And then we're going to show you what they actually say, the real voice of the customer. And I think that's a huge area for now. As a matter of fact, if you don't mind, I do have another PowerPoint I can share here. Let me just open
Absolutely.
that up. And it's all about qualitative research and digital qual. And I gave this one the other day, but it's pertinent to where we're talking now, because it's about how do you share that stuff. So let me share this one. And let's see here. This is, yeah, okay. So I just put this together.
Nice.
I gave it a week or so ago. This is for my consultancy in doing qual. So essentially, with digital qualitative, which is, if you're not in it now, you really should be, because during this whole pandemic, I mean, everyone has to communicate in digital form, and everyone is used to it now. I mean, I can't believe there's kids, grandmas, et cetera, all know how to use Zoom and on their phone or whatever. So it's not a challenge like it used to be. And here I've got a little thing, why qualitative is needed. I'm probably talking a bunch of qualities here, but I'm going to tell you my story of the purple car. You do a survey right now of favorite colors across the country, US. You're going to find out about 17 or so percent like the color purple. That's just where it is. Now, dissect that down to female, male. You'll find there's probably 24% or so females that choose purple as one of their favorite colors, but you didn't put it in context, right? So if you think about it, if that's true, why don't we have 17% of the cars on the road are purple? Why do we have purple houses? Why aren't more people wearing purple all the time? It's weird. It's a weird thing. So, if you get into qualitative, you ask, what do you think about it? Someone who drives a purple car? Would you feel comfortable driving purple car? Some people would, some people won't. And that's why you don't see more cars out purple on the road. Even though you like the color, you just context. So digital qualitative in general is going to deliver those insights that, again, I mentioned a lot of it has to do with design, or the front end, the fuzzy front end of innovation. So innovation initiatives can take place even after a company's been around a long time. I've done a lot of work with companies like Walmart and Kroger and some of these kind of companies. And those innovations just have to do with maybe a department reshape, or maybe a whole total restore store design. It depends on what that innovation is. It could even just be an app, who knows? But from that, you get into the journey map, and how does that fit into the journey? Is it linear? Is it, circular, whatever goes on there? Messaging, are we getting the message right? Do people understand what we're trying to say? Even if it's just a symbol. Brand perceptions, again, how do they think about the brand? Is it warm and fuzzy? Is it someone I have a connection with, or is it just this solid monolith that doesn't communicate? And then the touch point feedback along the journey, those different touch points, you have to have some sort of feedback just to monitor it and make sure it's working. As we all know, there's a bunch of different tools out there for digital qualitative, and I don't promote any one platform. I like all of them, but some do certain things and some do others. And there's some of them that are just like the Swiss Army knife. They're doing everything. And that's everything from, recruitment to, even analytic help. There's some of that. There's some AI tools they're helping on that now. But when you get into the tools, I mean, it really goes, it's not that hard when you think about digital. We've been doing telephone interviews forever. That's basically digital. Video meetings have been going on for a long time as well. As long as we've had the web, and even before that, I remember some clients had their own internal, Cisco systems, point to point, before the web even. I think they were probably using aspects of the web, but they had satellite uplinks, big companies. Mobile apps, when that came out, that changed the game on everything, right? It really did. It changed everyone's lives. Our brain is now in this, I don't even remember a phone number, but mobile apps give you the ability to be with your interviewee wherever they are, anytime. You can go, I've done so many studies where I'm looking into everything from all the different rooms in a house to projects that are doing on home improvement to, what's in your purse? What kind of makeup do you have in your counter? You get pictures of this stuff. And when they go shopping, hey, take a picture of something on the shelf that catches your eye, something that, you like, something you don't like. So you understand all that now. And really, there's a big challenge with mobile apps as well. But just because you can capture all these videos and photos doesn't mean you should, because you're going to get inundated with data, especially at large samples. And that's where integrated platforms come into play. So integrated platforms take in all these things, mobile, online, however they want to communicate. And that's good for, like, longer studies. For instance, I did one with a tire manufacturer a couple years back. And we had 120 people because they had all these different segments they wanted to know about. Different kind of vehicles have different tires. They manufacture all of them. There's so many SKUs and tires. It's ridiculous. So we did one in farming. We did another one for passenger vehicles. And so we had 120 people in the passenger vehicle group, and then we had about 40 people on the agricultural side. And we had to have these people go through. All of them needed to have tires. They needed to be in the market for tires, and they had to have certain vehicles that either came with the original equipment as the brand or not. And so the big question we're trying to solve on that was, why are people not buying the same brand tire when they go to repurchase tires? That was the big issue. And how can we get them to do it? Well, over time, the study design was fun because I started off with just a survey to help qualify people, right? It's a big survey. And then narrow that down to people who are in the market and want to buy. And then we have to bring them into mobile ethnography. So I started off with all these free videos of how to do it and who we are and what we're doing. But I didn't tell them the brand. I just tell them they have to go buy tires and document what they do. We gave them about a month on that. So there's a lot of cat pacing and other things going on with that, and making sure everyone's complying and submitting what they need to. The ones who finished up on that, which we actually had a really good participation rate. Then we brought them into bulletin board discussion groups to really explore further along what they did, and especially any anomalies that came up. And then Gary picked some people out of that into IDIs. Well, imagine the report on this thing. You got, I don't know, 30 or so different segments out there, and then further segmentation that's based on, I guess it would be, just how the data laid out. I think call it, there's a certain term for it, but it's kind of a regression analysis and qual, if you will. But then you take it and you say, okay, how many photos am I going to use? How many videos can I use? And it's overwhelming, because these executives ultimately, they only have a 30-minute meeting. What you learn over the past 3 months? Oh, here, this is what you should do, right? And that's my job as a consultant, to tell them, the output. They didn't care so much about the whole process. But we, as researchers, we got to be down in the weeds. So the basic kinds of studies that we do, or the methods, not necessarily study type for me would be product design, right? But the methods available to us now are mobile ethnography, diary keeping, both online and mobile. In-depth interviews could be anywhere, whatever Zoom or any kind of platform you want, whether it's protected and recruited, or whether it's not, all kinds of transcription stuff around that. Then you have your real-time focus groups. It's the Brady Bunch nowadays. I can remember doing that, 15 years ago. and speed and dial up and all that stuff was such a hassle. Nowadays you just want to make sure everyone's got stable internet connection for that, if you're going to do real-time focus group. Bulletin board focus groups are a little more easy, in my opinion. People are used to having threaded discussions now, and you can basically go in anytime. It's asynchronous. So you can go in anytime and do what you need to do. It was funny. I named my company Threads before I even thought about threaded discussions. It had nothing to do with it. It had more to do with a fabric museum in Bali than it did with threaded discussions, or the thread that ties us together and all that. But anyhow, I digress. So the steps to do any study, this is stuff you guys should know, falling off the truck. All starts with the objectives. What are we going to do here? There's business objectives, there's decisions that need to be made, and there's research objectives, how we're going to get there. What are we doing? Study design is directly related to objectives and budget and time. How are we going to get the information we need in a timely manner at the least cost? There's a recruiting process from there. Study design also includes the questions and the recruiting screeners and all that good stuff, timelines. Then there's interviewing engagement. You get in the field and talk to these people somewhere, or stay at home and talk to them on Zoom. And analysis, taking all of this qualitative stuff, and the digital again is very media driven, multimedia. So knowing how to look at this stuff and make sense out of all these different points of view and different experiences, because we're all different people at different times, right? Analysis is tough, and I just say, stick to, let it sit in your brain for a little while. I call it sponge egg light. Actually, I picked that up from Earl Nightingale years ago. Sponge egg light means when you're in a study, you soak it all up and just immerse yourself in all points of view and different methods as you can. Try to use a whole bunch of different methods, not just one. And then you incubate it like an egg, right? So you just let it sit for a little while, and all of a sudden you're in the shower or driving or something, you're going to come up with some ideas. These are insights. And sometimes it takes some creativity, a leap, just like, as I said earlier, seeing the things that others don't see, and just bringing it to light. And then you go, aha, I have some hypotheses that came out of the study. So you want to share that kind of high level stuff and make a difference. And that's what comes to reporting. Reporting is on a lot of different levels in CX, as I showed you earlier. You have, constant data or ongoing, which is in dashboard components. And then you have front end research, which is typically in qualitative components. But again, all of that only matters if people can do something with the information in a timely basis. And that should help them, improve the moment. It's kind of like the accountant phrase. And now this was in a report here, and I had one of these keyed up here to play. I don't have it right now, but we did an interview not long ago with some hurricane survivors, and these people had their homes just totally wiped out. This guy here, for instance, that's his house now. It's just nothing there. It totally washed away. And he was having to go through problems with his, rescue dogs, all this. These people were in bad shape. Let's put it that way. And we were working for an energy company. This was down in Texas. And there was all kind of issues with floods and all that stuff. We just wanted to know, what their needs were throughout that process, preparing for the hurricane all the way through to, a couple weeks after, and how they felt during those different time moments. Because, when you're in the thick of things, time is really different than like if you're, just hanging out, right? Time flies when you're having fun, but it's very intense when you're in a crisis. So understanding these kinds of things is what we had to do. So I actually brought these are clips from what I had in the PowerPoint, and I would just share click on the video and it plays, right? So that was helpful. And over here is like a journey mapping area on that part. So anyhow, that's it for my qualitative stuff there.
So a couple of questions, Mark, that came to mind. Like at the beginning, you were talking about journey mapping and the process of doing that, but you also you spoke to like the silos within the organization, and because journey mapping inherently is covering end to end, like there's subject matter experts throughout the entire organization that need to get pulled into that. So, and that exercise of pulling everybody in and engaging them and keeping them moving in the right direction and contributing and stuff, that collaborative process can be difficult to manage.
Oh yeah, a lot of politics.
Can you give any advice to us in regards to how you've managed that, or what have you picked up over time that has allowed you to facilitate those types of conversations?
Sure. So for me, it's been workshops are the way to go. So we actually have it as a priced item, right? Because how many hours of preparation, things like that. So first off, we would spend a lot of time doing IDIs with key stakeholders, CEO on down. Okay, so IDIs with the top managers, and these might be from 30 minutes to an hour interviews with them. In the past, we used to go in person right to their offices. And I've been in a lot of offices that way. Now we just do it online through this kind of channel. So in-depth interviews, first of all, transcribe what they say and send them the transcript back. Say, is this accurate? Do you want to say anything more, right? So they know they're being heard, number one. For all levels, operations, marketing, sales, service, whatever it might be. Then you actually go and talk to customers as well. So you sort of have a baseline of what they're looking for and what they're at. You want to see if there's alignment between what the customer is saying and what they're saying. So again, we get that voice of the customer, the real voice of the customer. If it's in alignment, great, we report that. If it's not, we report that. Whatever that is, we say, here's what they said, here's what you said. You're missing the boat on these 2 or 3 areas, right? Now, they can either disagree or fight that. Someone's going to be embarrassed, no matter what. We didn't deliver the product on time. The packaging failed on us. Whatever it is, the communication was unclear. There's always going to be failure, and the key is to learn from your failures and move forward. How can you fix something if you ignore it? It's just going to get worse. So we try to set that mindset with management during the interviews and during the whole process. So I've got one kicking off here in April 1. And this is with a clothing manufacturer for work clothes. And this company's never done Journey Map, and they have customer experiences like foreign. They've been around for like 80 years, right? And I'm like, okay, well, we need to bring in everyone for these meetings. I'm just going to look at my timeline and say, let's make sure everyone can be at this meeting and this date, and then this meeting, and we're going to have a workshop. So all those interviews have to take place, and the reporting and everything else, and the Journey Map creation before that date. Puts pressure on me. Get all that done. Now, at that meeting, what I do is I try to say, look, guys, let's take off your operations hat for a moment, take off your marketing hat. Let's just absorb the information. And so then we'll present stuff, but we'll have them also get engaged with some sticky note kind of stuff. They might go up there and start pegging things on different places in the map, say, it's not my fault, it's his fault over there, because I didn't get what I needed, whatever it is. There's a lot of finger pointing and stuff, but at the end that's a whole day long process. Have some good food, make sure they're relaxed, settle in, and really sort of start working through it, identify where are the big problem areas we need to focus on. Then you fight it out for priorities and resources, right? So I need budget to do that. Okay, well, I need budget too. You want me to do all that? It's a negotiation, a give take, and they have to go up to top management ultimately to sort out where the spend is going to be, and what the measures of success will be. That's a mouthful right there.
That's okay. And that's helpful. And Mark, this past year has shown us that we have to be very creative in the ways that we facilitate those kind of conversations, right? So a lot of this stuff is having to happen online, and obviously that becomes a bit of a challenge. But there are things like Mural out there that has a lot of these templates, collaborative platforms, and
Oh
so
yeah,
forth.
love it, Mural. Yeah.
So have you been utilizing resources like that to facilitate these kind of conversations?
Personally, I haven't yet, and this is shame on me area. I just told everyone they should get out there and really be involved in digital qual, right? Mm-hmm. I made a decision about 4 years ago, 3 or 4 years ago, and that is partly because of my angst in having to do reports and deal with politics, right? I've been the messenger of bad news so long. I've got like a leather back, you get a lot of arrows in your back. You get killed. They shoot the messenger. But I've been doing it a long time. The other thing is I've already created and sold some businesses, right? Other research companies. I did very well when I did that, but that only lasted so long. So I've looked at it and says, legacy wise, what do I want to be known for? What do I want to leave? And I've had a lot of people tell me that I'm a connector. I just like to connect people. I like to bring together people for jams. I like to go to conferences and organize them and stuff. So I decided at that time I was going to focus my energy and attention. My timing is impeccable. I was going to focus all my time on conferences, right? Bringing people together. Yeah. Obviously, when we got hit by this, I had 4 shows planned, booked, and ticketed. Refund everyone their money, go forward. And the challenge became, frankly, looking at all the ways people are going online with conferences and looking at how communities are developing and what's going to happen. So I became a student of technology. I had to go back to my roots and sort of understand the offerings for things like conference management online and other tech stacks. So my heart has been more in organizing these events and bringing speakers onto the audience. It's more about them than me. I just kind of background on it, but I may host it or find a guest host. But I'm really looking forward to in-person events again, and I am planning them now for this fall in person, Boston on September 21st. Then we're going to be in Chicago on There's a lot of commitment. Chicago on October 12th, Atlanta on November 9th, and Austin, Texas on December 14th. My goal is to do one of these a month in different markets across the country. We're looking at Irvine, Miami, Nashville, Seattle, New York, Minneapolis, Philadelphia, and then a repeat Boston, Chicago, Atlanta, and Austin. So that's where I'm at. Yeah.
And that's fantastic. That's a full lineup. I'm glad to hear that you are going to be out there hitting the road again. I'm so glad that the rest of us will be out there hitting the road again, I hope in the fall.
Yeah.
And I appreciate you sharing your wisdom with us.
My pleasure.
And hope that, if anyone has any questions for Mark, you can still go ahead and we're wrapping up on the hour, but you can go ahead and send that to us and we will get those to him. And we can also get you a copy of this presentation. And I hope you'll check out, CX Forum and if he comes to your market this fall, I hope you'll attend. So
Yay, love it. And anyone who has any questions, feel free to hit me up. I also have a weekly show. What I did was actually I took this whole thing. I said, I'm not just going to put my conference online. It's a little bit dull, pre-recorded stuff, chat and networking chats. I said, I want to do a weekly show. I started thinking about night shows. You watch late night shows. I said, I'm going to do one every Wednesday, and I'm going to make 40. I'm going to make, they say 30% of it's going to be a fireside chat, so 20 minutes, only an hour, and then 40 minutes is networking. So we do 2 breakouts. We're getting like 30 to 50 people each time, different guests each week. It's a fun way to engage your audience and learn by every guest I interview. And I'm just hitting people up, say, hey, would you like me? You look interesting.
if somebody that's listening and now wanted to participate in one of those, how would they do that?
Just find me on LinkedIn is the easiest way. Mark Michelson on LinkedIn. I look just like I do. And once you find me there, or send me an email, mark@cxforums.net. Our website is cxforums.org. You can find more info there, but these are free. We just, everyone comes. It's from 1:30 to 2:30 Eastern. It's a meeting format, so everyone's on video, everyone is on audio, and you come enjoy. You can ask any question you want there, but we usually have a theme for each show. Whatever that topic is. So by all means, come join.
Thank you.